Good afternoon, mid-January afternoon in Strasbourg for the third of our programmes where we're interviewing prominent politicians in the European Parliament. Last time we had Bruno Gollnisch here. We're very pleased to have Bruno. This time round we've got a distinguished politician from Flanders, Belgium, Philip Claeys, Flemish MP for the Vlaams Belang, and we also of course have Nick Griffin, who is the MEP for the North West of England. I'm going to start off, Philip, we're very pleased to have you. A lot of people in our country are very concerned about the way the Belgian authorities turned on the Vlaams bloc and effectively outlawed what was the most popular political party in the whole country. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, well, if you talk about immigration in Belgium, the whole system tends to put a label on you and tends to say you're racist, you're an extremist, dangerous party, and they change the law explicitly in order to convict us. And they changed the law several times because when they saw that it wasn't as simple as they thought it was going to be. And so there was a trial, and it took, I think, about 5 years. And each time the judges said, well, we're not competent because this is a politically motivated trial, and we are magistrates, and we're not politicians. And if the political class has a problem with another political party, it's their problem, but it's not a problem of a court of justice. And so this happened twice, and then the third time they went to the highest court in Belgium, and they said, okay, it has to be redone. And then finally they went to the Court of Appeals in Ghent, which is known as a very leftist court, and they found some judges who were willing to convict a political party that was one of the major parties in Flanders at that moment. Well, it still is, by the way. But it's a scandal, of course, because we didn't actually do anything that was against the law. We are not a racist party, and we haven't been a racist party. But what we want to do something about the problem of mass immigration, and it's one of the major problems in Belgian politics and Flemish politics, because the several governments now in Belgium and in Flanders have really had an open doors policy with regards to immigration, and this creates huge problems in mainly the big cities.
Just out of interest, did you have to pay to defend yourself in the courts? Did it cost you a lot of money?
It cost us some money, of course. Yes, we were convicted to pay a sum which I don't remember exactly now, but it was considerable. And we were lucky to have our own legal service within our party that worked on this trial, but we had other lawyers who worked for us, and we had to pay these people, of course. And yes, that's what they're trying to do. And by the way, there's something going on right now, even in Belgium, because you have to know that political parties in Belgium get state funding, and if you have a lot of votes, you get lots of money. If you have lots of votes, you get lots of money. If you get less votes, you get less money. What they're trying to do is take away from us this state funding.
So is this primarily a political attack, which also has financial implications, or is it largely, in fact, a financial attack to decide to cripple or destroy you, and it's just disguised as a political attack?
Yes, what's going on now is a political attack, because they changed the law, one more time with regard to party funding, and they said, well, a party that has been convicted for racism is not allowed to have any money from the state.
And this is taxpayers' money?
It's taxpayers' money. But every party gets it according to the number of votes it gets. The problem is, you cannot have any other kind of funding apart from state funding, because as an individual you can give up to 500 euros, I think, per year to a political party, but companies are not allowed. It's not a bad thing, I think. But if we wouldn't have this state funding, it would be very hard for us to
keep on strangulation, in effect.
Strangulation, you could say that. because they know that the list, if people give money to us, well, their names have to be disclosed, and if the names aren't going to be disclosed, well, you can really have some problems in Belgium.
It all sounds very familiar. What you're saying to us is probably being received back in Britain as a very familiar tale.
It is indeed. Yeah. Now, because obviously the attack on us over the last 2 years was very, very similar, designed to either just destroy us financially or in effect to ban us. And they failed on both counts. That case is finished. We won. We beat off the attack. And our Equalities Commission, the arm of the state responsible, has said that, at least for present, they're not going to renew the attack. I'm sure they will in some way in the future, but for now, we're safe. Now, with the Vlaams Belang, of course, it was different, because, as I understand it, effectively you were outlawed, and you're now the Vlaams Belang. What was the process and the change, and did the state expect that, or did you wrong-foot them?
I think they might have expected it, but they were trying to break us up, of course. The problem was that the law says that political parties cannot be convicted as such. So they had three subdivisions of our party that have been convicted, but that meant that every member of the party would risk to be himself pursued by Court of Justice and convicted.
Well, we know that.
Wow. So we had to do something. We had to disband our party and create a new party. And so the Vlaams Belang became the Vlaams Belang, the Flemish Interest Party. Which one thing that they didn't expect was that we had about 6 months after this conviction, we had a general election in Belgium, and we became the first single party in Flanders.
So that was in the teeth of all this hostility and the strain of resisting it. You were able to grow in support sufficiently to become the largest party in Flanders.
Yes, because many Flemings were shocked by the fact that we had been convicted, because we hadn't done anything wrong. We were just being convicted because of our opinions. And these opinions happened to be shared by more and more people. And even people that normally wouldn't have voted for the Vlaams Belang still voted for us to protest against what happened in Belgium.
So how do you feel as an MEP when you see various resolutions coming from the left within Parliament on about civil rights abuses all over the world, and right here in the heart of Europe you have what's happened to you and what's happened to us? It's astonishing, isn't it?
Well, this is hypocrisy from the left mainly, and we have to fight that kind of hypocrisy. And we always have to say what they are doing to curtail freedom of speech. This is one essential thing in a democracy, I think. If you cannot have freedom of speech,
real freedom of speech,
then you don't have a democracy. And we are in fact one of the most democratic parties in Flanders and in Belgium, because we are always very sensitive to that issue, and we always fight any attempt to curtail or to ban freedom of speech. I think you either have freedom of speech or you don't.
So
you cannot say
nobody.
For everybody or nobody, or you cannot say there's freedom of speech except on this and this and this topic. So you should be able to talk about immigration. You should be able to talk about integration problems, and we have these problems. And I think most of these problems are getting worse just because they cannot be addressed in a proper way.
Are you of the opinion, I mean, Nick, you're of the opinion that these things, they may seem bad at the time, but eventually they backfire in the aggressor, and they actually benefit from what you've said, Philip, the results that you got straight afterwards? Looking back now, do you actually welcome the attack on you? Do you think it benefited you electorally?
Yes, well, it benefited us in short term, of course, for the elections that followed on this conviction, but there's a huge problem, because it's very difficult for a party like the Vlaams Belang to work. People who are candidates for our party risk having serious problems. They risk losing their jobs. They risk all kinds of problems, and this should not be possible in a real democracy.
Am I right in thinking, sorry to interrupt, am I right in thinking there's also a social security problem potentially for people who are identified as Vlaams Belang?
Yes, in a way that in order to receive unemployment benefits in Belgium, you have to be a member of a trade union.
Yeah.
It's a very strange situation. Trade unions paying unemployment benefits to their members.
Yeah.
So you can do it on another way. There's a state system as well, but it works really badly. So in fact, you are forced to be a member of the trade unions, and the trade unions ban our members. So everyone who has been a candidate for the Vlaams Belang in any kind of election will be thrown out of his trade union and will not be entitled to have his unemployment back.
Astounding.
There's a lot of similarities there, isn't there? I mean, this is what's coming out. There's a pattern between nationalists that are persecuted across Europe. We think they must collude together, our oppressors, and gather notes and figure out ways to do us down, because what you're saying is almost exactly the same. It's a carbon copy of what's happening in Britain. And
Except
what happens?
the idea that you can't get social security.
Well, that's coming. Don't count your chickens.
Unapproved party. Stunning.
So what now? I mean, Belgium, of course, the state of Belgium was a British creation. You were obviously doing very well electorally. What is the future of Belgium as a country?
Well, there's not a big future for Belgium. Belgium is an artificial country. It doesn't work anymore. It has become completely ungovernable because you have a completely opposite political consensus in the two main parts of the country. You have Flanders and Wallonia. In Wallonia, you have a real strong left wing. In Flanders, it's more centre-right and right. And it's really two countries within one country, and it has become really impossible to govern anymore. So we don't have a government for more than 7 months after the elections now. Last time, in 2007, it took 9 months to form a government, and it's probably going to be even longer now because the problems have only become worse. And it's not only a problem of Flemings against Walloons, of Dutch speakers against French speakers. You see a gap in every policy issue. You see a gap on immigration, on social security, on economics, on taxes, on you just name it, on justice issues. And so what's going to happen is probably what happened to Czechoslovakia. So at a certain moment they saw that they're in an impasse. It couldn't work any longer, and so they just took their conclusions and said, okay, now we have to split up in an orderly way, in an organized way, in a peaceful way. And now within the European Union, Czechs and Slovaks get along better than they used to do when they were forced to live in one country. And I hope and I'm sure that this will happen with Flanders and Wallonia too.
Do you think that it's, relatively speaking, as easy as it was for the Czechs and the Slovaks? Because we've always sort of been told or got the impression that Belgium in a way is this artificial federal state. It's a model for the European Union, and of course the European Union in terms of Brussels is really based there. So my reading of it is that the Europhiles would be extraordinarily reluctant to see Belgium break into free countries, because that's a message that federal systems don't last forever and nations are entitled to their freedom.
Yes, I think you're right on that point. If you want to know the future of the European Union, well, you have to look at Belgium now. And of course, the problems that are existing in Belgium between Flemings and Walloons are specific to Belgium. And if we say we want an independent Flemish state, normally this should not have any implications for the other member states. I think this is very important, and I think it's going to be important for us that our independent state will be recognized by the other nations in the European Union and in the world, in the rest of the world. But of course this we have to warn people in the European Union that they shouldn't become like a sort of Belgium on a higher scale. This is very important, I think.
Well, gentlemen, that's all we've got time for. You've got an important meeting, Philip, at about 2 or 3 minutes, so we're very grateful for your time. Nick, as ever, I'm grateful for your time. And we'll be back again next month. Thank you.